What's going on, guys? I'm Chris and this is Regular Guy Training. Today we are going to talk about the Holosun 507 comp. So in other words, Holosun decided that they were going to look at the SRO and be like, I could do that better. Now, this is a pretty straightforward review, okay, because pistol-mounted dots are really not all that complex. But that said, there's some interesting things about this individual product that, frankly, make it the best dot I've ever used. So, typically speaking, especially now, we're running into a particular set of obstacles when we're dealing with pistol-mounted dots and that sort of thing, and that is, well, I need functionality and I need reliability. It's really that simple. A lot of the stuff that we had been using before was quite small windowed, and one of the gold standards as far as pistol-mounted dots is concerned is something like the Reticle RMR, which has a pretty small window, but dang, that thing is reliable, and it's really resistant to damage. You also have other guys that are sort of taking the chance, because some of them are using, for instance, the SRO as like a duty pistol optic and that sort of thing, despite the fact that they straight up recommend that you not do that. And the main reason is simply because, well, if I get into really awkward positions and that sort of stuff, and particularly if I start using night vision in conjunction with my handguns, the much larger window really does help with light transmission and that sort of deal. So you typically had that sort of balance where even if you throw the Holosun optics in there, they mostly followed a similar form factor. Well, now we have the 507 comp, which is pretty dang reliable as far as its ability to resist anything, because I've been using mine for quite some time, and I've noticed quite a few people picking theirs up as well, coming to class, shooting a bejesus out of their guns with them and that sort of thing, running them off of belts and all of that jazz as far as to fix stoppages or one-handed reloads or whatever, and it seems to just not care. In addition to that, we have quite a few features that are quite nice to have, because features are only really great if you have a reliable optic, and this is basically quite reliable in that sense. So what we have here is you have the shake awake feature that is cobbled together also with the auto shutoff feature, which preserves a little bit of that lithium battery that you shoved into it. You have many different reticle choices and types, which I will get back to here in just a second, but that provides an enormous amount of flexibility. And in addition to that, you also have a very large window. Now, this window is interesting, right? Because it seemed to follow a slightly different philosophy than the Trijicon SRO did, in that it doesn't quite have as much vertical glass, but proportionally speaking, especially when proportionally speaking means you behind the optic, the lateral glass, the left and right glass, is quite large. And I enjoy that quite a bit, because if you know how recoil control works, if you know how to present the pistol in a proper way and that sort of deal, the vertical glass really doesn't matter all that much, but the lateral glass starts to really matter a lot, especially if you start doing a bunch of one-handed shooting or end up in really goofy positions, or you're just trying to get back up on the gun after something a little awkward like a one-handed reload or just a reload in general. It's really easy to pick that guy up, and any little mistakes that you've made are sort of corrected by the fact that the lateral glass is enormous. Also, the vertical glass is quite large, so you have all of those advantages baked into a geometric shape that's quite good as far as all of that is concerned, so it's almost mistake-free as far as that stuff is considered. Now, in addition to this, we're looking at the numerous reticle options, which, man, they really, like, you could sit there for a full minute and a half and cycle through all of your options by just holding down the minus key on the side of the optic until you find something that you like. And me personally, I found actually a few reticle options that I just prefer. And the reason why I prefer them actually has to do with quite a few different times of day or sets of circumstances. For instance, the traditional dot that's in it. It's nice, it's a 2-minute dot, bright enough, does its thing, all good. I'm using that if I'm using my handgun with night vision, right? Like if everything is rigged up for passive, it's just dark, and in case I might need a handgun, well, I have that on tap as far as an option is concerned, and I can just use the dot. Dot's made just bright enough. I'm not going to lose it under sparks and flash and that sort of thing, but it's also not so large that the LED starts to bloom over and interfere with my ability to pick up targets, especially if I really need the contrast between the target area and its background. So you have that going for you. Also, people that just prefer or dots in general, there you go. There's also a variety of different circle-only options, and man, I thought that Holosun was just going away from the circle-only options. I thought that, frankly, their attitude as far as the circle-only option was essentially,
but we stumbled onto something that's so hot for that they're scrambling over each other to get it. Well, I don't care if it's God's own anti-son of a bitch machine or a giant hula hoop, we're not gonna let them have it.
And that made me quite sad. So, you know, that is what it is, right? But the fact that they went back to this because enough people are like, no, seriously, it helps me use the dot correctly, and then I don't focus on the reticle itself. I focus on the target area and then just drift the ring over because I can't center a dot, right? So I have to pay attention to the center of the target that this ring is drifted over to, and it helps out a lot in the speed, accuracy department, using it the way that it's supposed to be used, that sort of deal. So I'm so glad that they went back to that. But they also have an enormous circle option that can come with a dot in the center also. And I personally use this quite a bit as well. I use this personally when speed is a must, but I also have to really be able to detect my reticle really quickly. Sometimes in conjunction with white lights, especially if you got a good and powerful white light, it tries to wash reticles out even if they're quite bright, and if there's other stuff going on and you have the white light projected, you can get distracted a little bit because the dot itself can start to get lost with foreground, background areas, a lot of backlighting that you get off of the surface that you're lighting, that sort of deal. And while I want more white light, sometimes I want more friggin' reticle as well. So going to the much larger circle with a dot in the center helps me just bam, it's right there. I have that between that and my white light. There's no way that I'm gonna miss what's going on right in front of me, and we're set, right? So while other guys may find different preferences with different reticle types, those seem to be my three, and the cool part is that I have a 3 of the many that are available. So you have the big glass, it's reliable, it's not going to get absolutely murdered if you start running it off of objects like 2x4s and belt buckles and things like that. And I have the options to use it in ways that I just could not use other optics before. So it's not an exaggeration. This is the best pistol mounted optic I've ever used, and frankly it's just going to start replacing all of mine unless I have a really specific use case for something that needs to be like Terminator tough, and that's probably an optic that's saddled on top of a rifle or something like that. So that just seems to be where I'm at on this, right? And I'm quite excited for that because, man, it's just fantastic, and it doesn't come at ridiculous price either. So it basically has everything going for it. And to date, while I haven't dropped the thing, that seems to be Aaron Cowan's thing, I haven't dropped it personally, but I've run it off a lot of different objects, and I've mounted it to a lot of different guns. I've shot with it a lot, and it just does not care what I do to it in that sense. So there you go. If you were ever on the fence on this thing, just go get it. It's phenomenal. It does everything that you need it to, and probably more as well. And that's all I have on it. So, with that being said, if you want to support us through Patreon, or if you want to check out our social media links, all that's in the description below. If you want to get something out of it, $41 a month will help you as well, because you can get as much training as you want with us, so long as it's not a logistically difficult class, such as something like a private or a vehicle class, for fairly obvious reasons. If you don't want to get caught up in the monthly thing, and if you just want to throw a couple of bucks at us to just be like, hey, I like what you do, here's some support, you can pick up a super thanks that is like in a little lower section in the little video window here. And if you want to support us but you don't want to throw money at us, and only if you like this video, go ahead and hit the like button, subscribe to us, throw a comment in there, all of that jazz to please the algorithm and all the machine gods associated, because it really does help us out quite a bit as far as getting our name out there and getting us actually put to the world, algorithmically speaking. And lastly, I want to take a second to appreciate all of the support that you have given us. As you can probably tell, I am a schoolhouse now that happens to have a YouTube channel versus just a YouTube channel, and I've noticed that, you know, my production volume has dropped quite a bit, and I didn't want to neglect that support, so we've upped not just the quality but the quantity as well to properly support those who support us, as well as getting good information out there. So, with that being said, guys, remember, a regular guy's firearm is the last defense against tyranny. Be easy.